Medium-term expenditure framework. House of Representatives meets NNPC, FRSC and other MDAs. House calls for decisive measures to tackle smuggling of petroleum products. And House accuses some MDAs of withholding government revenue. Hello and welcome to You and Your Reps. My name is Victor Azu. It's a pleasure to have you join us. Energy security is very strategic to the development of many countries, Nigeria inclusive. Apart from ensuring stability in price of petroleum products, in spite of huge disparity in returns, the federal government, through the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, is committed to ending importation with the coming on board of the Petroleum Industry Act and the Dangote Refinery. National Assembly correspondent Lami Ali reports that the Group Managing Director of the NNPC reeled out statistics, strategies and measures on government's investments in the industry during the hearing on medium-term expenditure framework.
The local consumption of petrol for Nigeria is between 48 to 52 million litres per day. The actual market price of petrol is 256 naira per litre, but the commodity is sold at a pump price of 162 naira per litre. That's a difference of 94 naira on each litre. The Group Managing Director of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation added that though the Petroleum Industry Act enables full deregulation, this arrangement will remain for some time. The interaction touched several issues such as investments in Dangote Refinery, among others.
This is a very informed policy decision that first will guarantee security of energy because we will have a seat, we will have rights to 20% of the production from this facility. By the time we are done with our refinery and Dangote's combined, no one will import petroleum products into this country. There will be no need for it anymore.
Thank you, GMD. You've made our day. You can take your leave.
The Federal Road Safety Corps took its turn as the hearing and informed the committee about efforts to further improve on services.
I can say that we have about 99% proof of genuineness of license because people knows now with the awareness if you don't go for capture, your license is fake.
The Managing Director of Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria, in an analysis of its projections with the committee, painted a positive picture.
7.6 billion was remitted as contribution to the Consolidated Revenue Fund as of June this year.
The committee says it will amend some sections of the National Lottery Trust Fund Act to plug identified loopholes. Others that made appearance at the medium-term expenditure framework hearing include Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, Nuclear Regulatory Agency, and Nigeria Sugar Development Council, among others.
Meanwhile, the House of Representatives says eliminating smuggling of petroleum products across Nigerian borders should be tackled decisively. The House Committee on Finance at the Medium-Term Expenditure Framework hearing told concerned agencies to rise to their responsibilities and spare the country huge revenue loss as a result.
Our concern then is that if our consumption will suddenly rise from 30, 35 to 40 to 100 millions per liters per day, it becomes a major issue and a loss of revenue to Nigeria.
The smuggle of petroleum products across the border is alarming. In fact, policymakers have oftentimes said Nigeria is subsidizing the West African sub-region due to sharp practices of some marketers in the supply chain. The hearing on Medium-Term Expenditure Framework 2022 to 2024 presented the committee with an opportunity to ask agencies such as the Department of Petroleum Resources, Nigeria Customs Service, Petroleum Products Pricing and Regulatory Agency, among others, why such practice persists.
We see DPR coming to life during scarcity in terms of ensuring that the right thing is done, but once there is a glut, we go to sleep when it comes to monitoring, and this is part of the challenge or part of the window that we have given that is leading to this huge outflow of petrol outside the country.
When the joint border drill initiated by the Office of the National Security Advisor kicks in, we were advised to stop supplies to filling stations 20 kilometers to the border, which we did.
From the receiving depot, for instance, if a marketer loads product from Lagos, Ejigbo depot, and brings it to Suleja depot, that is where the responsibility of PEF ends. To now track from the depot to the outlet is what we're working on now.
The committee says the National Assembly will come up with a uniform strategy to prevent smuggling of petroleum products, as it costs the government billions of naira, which could be channeled to other areas of need for the benefits of citizens.
Now, the House of Representatives Committee on Finance says its interaction with agencies of government has revealed that some agencies have over time refused to remit revenues due to government, an attitude the committee says affects government's development objectives.
The House Committee on Finance commenced the medium-term expenditure framework hearing last week. The MTEF is for 2022 to 2024. The legislature was concerned about deficit, which leads to borrowings to fund development projects captured in the budget. In an attempt to plug leakages, it requested the details of actual revenue and actual performance as against budgetary approvals from ministries, departments and agencies of government. The findings after 2 weeks of interaction was revealing. Aside recycling of projects, some agencies, the committee says, hide under their establishment acts to embark on unapproved spending in billions.
Revenue generating agencies refuse to remit their revenue to the appropriate accounts. Agencies have leveraged on their establishment acts to spend their IGR, thereby denying the government the needed revenue. The committee established that some of these acts are self-serving and against national interest, and the need to amend such acts is now.
The borders were not closed. Compared with 2018, 2019, when the borders were not closed, we are virtually consuming the same product, the same volume.
Based on the challenges that has to do with determining the true consumption level of this country, the ministry decided to form a committee, and that committee is known as Operation White.
It is commonplace to hear the phrase ranking member. What does this mean and what privileges does it confer? Let's go find out.
Ranking is considered based on how many years you have spent in the house, depending on whether you are a first timer, second timer, third timer. There are people, I think there is in the House of Reps, there's one person that has stayed in the House since the beginning of the Assembly in 1999. So members are ranked by how old they have stayed in the chamber. There is no specific privilege apart from the fact that ranking members are given seats in the front. Just like the bench, they went in the courts. Senior lawyers sit in front. Other lawyers, junior lawyers sit behind. So the far away, the more junior you are away, the far away you are from the speaker. The higher ranking you are, the closer you are to the seat of this thing. That's how. Otherwise, it has no this thing. You enjoy equal privilege with every other person. But the older you are in this thing, it is assumed that you are more experienced. Okay? It is assumed that you are more experienced. So you are given seats in front. so that once I listen, you won't catch the attention of the presiding officer. One way you listen, the presiding officer will listen, which is assume that you have more to contribute as a ranking, as an experienced member than someone who is a greenhorn.
Following presidential assent to the Petroleum Industry Bill (PIB), which has since become an act of parliament, what can Nigerians expect from the petroleum industry going forward? We engaged a member of the House of Representatives ad hoc committee on the PIB, Sergis Ogun, and here's what he has to say.
The president, who is the Minister of Petroleum, has given enormous powers to the Minister of State Petroleum to work the act, to get everybody on board, and then hopefully I believe he would, he's the son of the Niger Delta, he should be able to sell it to the Niger Delta people. Then you have the Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, another son of the Niger Delta. So I'm sure they'll be able to sell it to the people to say, look, maybe 3% today from the host communities from this petroleum act, but hopefully also they have added the gas that has been flared, even though we are working on doing away with flaring of gas in the shortest possible time. But whatever proceeds that come from that right now will not go to the federal government anymore. You know, will go to the host communities. So the figures they are playing with now, give and take, should be between $800 million to about $1 billion. And I am an industry person. My own advice would be, we shouldn't see it as we shouldn't take it that they look down on us, Niger Delta people. We should take what is on board for now, because the idea behind this whole bill is, people should know, if they are coming to invest here, they should know their return on that investment. So if we have a bill that properly captures the essence of the industry, and then that gives confidence to the investors to come in and invest, the investments will further open the industry. And then that's where you can even get the return, whether it's 3% or it's 5%. If the investors are not here, you can have 20% in the bill. But if you don't have the investors here, nothing will come. I'm one of those that strongly believe that 1% of something is better than 50% or 90% of nothing. You have to take the asset of NNPC, because now it's no longer a corporation. It's a limited liability. It's going to take time for the minister to register that NNPC Limited now, and then you have to know the asset. It's going to take time to pull everything together. So while you are doing that, you have a commission, the upstream regulatory commission, and you have the midstream and the downstream authority. Yeah. And you have to take time to put people here and there now, which means all the powers, all the responsibilities of DPR before now will be shared between these two, this commission and this regulatory, this agency authority. So if you put it that way, a whole lot will need to be done. Okay. And if you're going to do all this, it's not something that will be done in one day. Okay. So it has something that must be managed, So the bill has come to stay by the grace of God. So you must put the right things in place so that it becomes implementable. Otherwise, because there are still gray areas, you need to explain properly to those that will execute this bill, so that those gray areas are properly explained to them. Now, you have an agency or an authority. If those things are not streamlined and you set up the authority and say, go, if they don't understand the bill properly, they will not be able to carry out their functions. So the steering committees and all that is the time to do their work. And there might be things that we didn't quite see when we're putting this bill together. It will be their responsibility to bring them to the National Assembly, and maybe we'll start amending them, because we want a bill that will work for everybody. We have to task those given the responsibility to carry out these functions. I give you an example. When we're talking about the abandonment and decommissioning, this is basically when you have operated an asset, be it a platform, be it an oil well, be it even a pipe. It will age. It gets to a certain level that maybe there's no oil in that well anymore, or the platform is now not useful anymore. So that's when you are abandoning the well, or even if you drill that well and it's a dry hole, you are going to abandon it. But there are basic things you must do. And in the bill, what is obtainable in the Western world, in Canada, in the US, in Norway, even in the UK, is that you get the company that started operating the asset, probably has divested the asset to another company. You hold them all responsible, the first to the last, for the decommissioning of that asset. In other cases, if it's the one that the company is been divested to and is a small company, and it says we are bankrupt, we don't have the money to carry out this decommissioning, the decommission says, okay, fine, we have heard you, but we will sell all your assets, whatever is left, we will sell it and take the money for the decommission. This, in our bill, we were not holding the initial asset owner responsible. If this happens, it will mean that the responsibility of the decommissioning will come back to the commission. That's the upstream commission now. And that is taking money from our own purse. We should apply the same laws as it is in the Western world, that they hold the first operator of that asset down to any other person that held it, to the small person that might want to walk away. So in answering your question, yes, we might not, the Nigerian way, we might close an eye and then do other things, but it's for all of us, the media, the civil society, the legislators, and even the host communities, to cry out when anything is not properly done, when it's not implemented, we don't follow the law. Because the law is just on paper. It's never going to jump out from the Constitution or from the Act and say, here I am, you are not doing this, I will whip you. We are the ones that will bring up the matter, go to court, and then bring attention to it.
Still on the Petroleum Industry Act, we went to town to feel the pulse of ordinary Nigerians following presidential assent. Take a look and take a listen.
From what we heard from the experts, we were told it's going to open the industry for more investment and more things to come into Nigeria.
It has given most of the international organizations little legal bearings. Those who want to tour the oil business, it has given them legal bearings. At least they can action some certain things. And also the host community has also getting some legal bearings. That is the difference. Even if it is not satisfactory, at least you have where you can rely on. If you feel aggrieved, you have a law, you can say, look, here I want to challenge it.
All I'm urging is what is in that bill to be treated accordingly so that it will benefit the masses.
This week on You and Your Reps, the committee segment rather plays host to Senior Special Assistant to the President on National Assembly Matters, House of Representatives, Umar El-Yakub. We had an interesting conversation on legislature-executive synergy and the results thereof.
We all know the situation between the Executive and the 8th Assembly. However, with the 9th Assembly, priorities have been given by both the House of Representatives in particular in this case and the National Assembly in general to work with the Executive in a very cooperative and collaborative manner. Certainly the relationship, having a harmonious relationship between the Executive and the Legislature brings about effective service delivery and also ensures good governance, and that translates to development for the nation. So the commitment and the resolve of Mr. President and the National Assembly leadership from the onset of the 9th Assembly is to work harmoniously together and to ensure that the relationship is being deepened so that the Nigerian people and the nation is served better. Because whilst respecting the principle of separation of powers, there is certainly a need for the various arms of government to collaborate and work together to ensure that, you know, the nation benefits from their representation and as a government. I must say that I didn't have to do so much, because having identified the issues with the 8th Assembly and the bottlenecks associated with ensuring that policies of government and are being worked together by both the National Assembly and the Executive with a view to ensuring that there is synergy, there is cooperation, so that things work better for the nation. Having identified that and committed to that, it made my job easier, because there is that resolve by, like I said earlier, by both the Executive and the Legislature. The President is quick to ensure that all MDAs respect and honor invitations as when called upon by the National Assembly. He ensured that during the passages of, consideration of Appropriation Acts, he even made directives that no minister should travel and head of agency should be around to make sure they defend their budgets before the committees of the National Assembly. He ensured that also continuous engagement is practiced between the MDAs and the respective committees of the National Assembly. And all those synergies made things much easier, because you find that whenever anything is presented before the National Assembly, there has been expeditious consideration, because before anything is presented, usually there's an engagement, an interface, and platforms were created for dialogues, so as to ensure that that communication gap is breached, there is understanding, and inputs are sought even from the legislatures before things are presented. And after that, also the dialogue, continues, the engagement continues, so that it makes it much easier for their own consideration and passages of government bills, be they Appropriation Act, be it approval of medium-term expenditure framework, supplementary appropriation, other very critical bills. You find now budget cycle has been, reversed to the usual beginning to the end of the year, i.e. January to December cycle, and this only happened because of this collaboration and good relationship that exists between the legislature and the executive, and also the implementation of the budget itself. You find that last year about 100% of the capital projects were implemented. Before now, you know that even the passages of the budget goes almost half the year, and before you know it, the end of the year, so you find very small percentage of the budget is being implemented. And certainly that doesn't augur well for the overall well-being of the Nigerian people and the development of the country. Just recently, I'm sure everyone is aware of this legacy act that has been assented to by the President, the bill, the Petroleum Industry Bill, which is a significant milestone, and certainly it was only brought about because of this relationship that exists, this good and harmonious relationship that exists between the legislature and the executive, because this bill has been hanging in the National Assembly for over 2 decades, as we are all aware. There are other critical bills that have been passed over the time, the Company and Allied Matters Act, the Police Act, of course, as the Electoral Amendment Bill has just been passed. I'm sure they're going to harmonize by the time the National Assembly resumes from their break, and for onward transmission to Mr. President for his assent. There are many significant achievements of this administration in terms of leveraging certainly on the relationship that exists between the executive and the legislature.
Interesting what synergy can do. We do hope that this cooperation between the executive and legislature continues for the benefit of Nigerians. And this is where we leave it on You and Your Reps for the week. We thank you for watching. My name is Victor Azu. See you next time.